Hello and welcome to my 10 things to do in Tenby, which is a town on the Pembrokeshire Coast in South Wales. So I visited Tenby a few weeks ago as part of a big 8-day road trip I did across the entirety of Wales, which I'll be making a few more videos on soon, so make sure you stay tuned for that. And if you're thinking of visiting Tenby soon, I'm also going to be making another video about the best things to do in the Pembrokeshire Coast in general, which you can all see on one holiday, so make sure you hit that subscribe button and keep an eye out. So without further ado, let's begin. So the first thing I want to talk about was my favourite thing to do in Tenby, which ironically isn't actually in Tenby. It is a boat trip to Caldey Island, which is just offshore from Tenby. So these boat trips you can see advertised all throughout Tenby. Just head down to the docks. So they're relatively cheap and there are so many boats that do them. Generally they last for about an hour to an hour and a half, and essentially they just take you all around Caldey Island, which is a relatively untouched island just off the coast of Tenby. And you get to see all the wildlife and all these, beautiful beaches on Caldey Island. So on our trip we saw seals. Sometimes you can see puffins. We didn't see any, but there were so many other, species of birds there, as well as these gorgeous looking beaches that look like something out of Jurassic Park, something like that. And these really unusual rock formations, as well as kind of like a history lesson as you're going around. The captain will be speaking to you and telling you really interesting things about the island and Tenby itself. Not to mention that you also get a really great view of Tenby if you take this boat trip. So this is one thing that I would definitely really recommend. So my second thing to do in Tenby is a walk up Castle Hill. Now this is a hill that's sort of right in the middle of Tenby, and it just gives you great views over the entire town. And it's a relatively easy walk to get up to this. There's some sort of remains from an old kind of fort thing on top of the hill that's nice to see as well as statues, and just the views from this place is really good. You really get an idea of the entire town. Great views, you can see all of the beaches, and you can also see the church with the town centre off in the distance. And if you come here on a really clear day, you can actually see all the way to Worm's Head, which is in the Gower. So it's just a great place with really desirable views, really interesting to go up. Definitely recommend it. And number 3 is going on to the 3 beaches of Tenby. So I suppose we should take this with a pinch of salt, knowing what the weather usually does in Wales. But if you do get lucky like we did and have a really nice day, Tenby has 3 incredible beaches and some of the clearest water that I've actually ever seen in Wales and the United Kingdom in general. Really great for a swim. The beach I would recommend is Castle Beach, which you can tell by the massive island fort that's just off the coast. The sea was really clear here. Nice soft sand, and as well swimming in the sea is always nicer when you've got some sort of great scenery. Swimming around the island was really interesting. So if it's a nice day, definitely do that. Which leads me on to my next point, which is the island itself. Now this island was sadly closed when we went, but if it's open, it looked like an incredible thing, so I can't comment too much on it. Since I went, I've been looking at photos of the inside and on the island when I came back, and it really looks like it's worth a trip if it's open. So I suggest just looking on the website before you go, checking all the opening times, and visiting the fort and the island. Now, next on my list, it's very interesting because Tenby is almost kind of built on a hill, which means that there is an entire row of pubs and bars and restaurants that each have their own individual balcony that overlooks the rest of the town. So my next thing would be to suggest, have a drink or some food at one of these places. The views here were absolutely incredible, and it was just a really nice spot. As you can see from these videos, this is the view from the balcony we went. We just went and had a drink, but if you've got more time, I would definitely suggest get some food. It's the great thing that all the restaurants, they're independent, they're not chains, so they all have homemade cakes, homemade everything, which just makes the food and the experience that much better. Right, swiftly moving on to the next on my list. So Tenby is part of the Pembrokeshire Coast Path, which is a path that goes around the entirety of the Pembrokeshire Coast. Now to walk this, obviously that is a pretty big ask, but by car the Pembrokeshire Coast is actually extremely accessible, about an hour's drive from each end. So I would recommend having another little walk around. Now I'll speak about this more in my next video about the Pembrokeshire Coast, but there are a lot of other little towns and castles, so I'll leave a list in the description below with a few castles that are close to Tenby, and if you're interested in learning more about the Pembrokeshire Coast, subscribe and I'll post about it soon. But it's just, the whole thing has such amazing scenery, and Tenby's just a small part of it. I think Tenby's definitely the most famous part of the Pembrokeshire coast, but not necessarily my favourite section. There is so much to see, so many things to do, all in this really small part of Wales, which is incredible. Now my next thing would just be to generally explore all around Tenby in general. It's an amazing place. Every single street is like a maze. You can tell it's a really old town, but even the streets themselves are very interesting. I'd suggest starting in the town centre where the church is. You always know where you are then, because you can see the church spire from literally anywhere in the town. So I would recommend to start there and just explore. Tenby is home to one of the smallest restaurants I've ever seen, which you can see in this clip here, and it just is so fitting. It feels like you're stepping sort of back in time in these, you know, cobbled, narrow streets that wind through the entire town, and there's always so many things to discover and find for yourself that I probably didn't even see. So I would suggest just walk around the whole place. It's quite condensed, and there are so many things to see around every corner. The next couple of things were closed when I went, because I went when we were just coming out of the COVID lockdowns and everything. But again, I've done further research on them, and just as other ideas to do, there is a museum and art gallery in Tenby, which is going to be my next point. This is right on Castle Hill, so if you're visiting the art gallery, you're almost at the top of Castle Hill anyway, so you get great views. It's all in one. As I said, everything's really close, so you can have fun with that. As well as the RNLI lifeboat station. You get really good views of this from the boat trip to Caldey Island as well, because the boat goes straight past it. But usually it's open and you can go in. If you're interested in boats, they had a lifeboat hanging up. I could see through the windows, ready to launch, which was really interesting. It's too bad that we can go in because I'm a massive fan of boats and all things sea, but it seemed really interesting. It was free just to go in, have a look. You know, you can learn a little bit about the RNLI and learn about the lifeboats and what they do, so that would also make it on the list too. So I think that pretty much sums it up. I spent 2 days exploring around Tenby, and that is what I managed to see. I'm sure if you have longer, there is so much more to do, but there is also a lot more, as I say, to do around the entire Pembrokeshire coast, so stay tuned for my next video. So I hope you enjoyed that. I hope you found that informative. Let me know in the comments if you're planning to travel to Tenby soon. Let me know if you've been to Tenby and you know of any other things that I missed off the list, and we can all just help each other, give each other ideas about some of the things to do in this really, really beautiful town. So thank you for watching, and I will see you soon. Goodbye.